Ladies and gentlemen, good morning today. This is White Lightning 777, and I'm here to talk about something political again and serious. The socialist left in this country, together with their jihadi allies, have not been in any way defeated. They lost a battle, they lost an election that they rigged, and that's good, but they're still around. We saw recently Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, talking to President Trump in public, claiming that $5 billion, which is an infinitesimally small amount of our budget, somehow is unaffordable. But the $80 to $100 billion we spend on illegals each year is somehow just fine. Okay, they're claiming we can't afford $5 billion. What they really mean is they can't afford to lose. It's too expensive for them to pay at the ballot box, not from the Treasury. And according to the Daily Caller, November 27th, 2018, the 15 terrorists were arrested crossing the border of this country, over a certain period of time. 2011, one ISIS terrorist that wasn't deported in our country even went into Canada and committed acts of violence and mayhem in our country to the north. In one of our allies, we didn't, not only are our actions affecting Americans, they're affecting Canadians as well. Isn't that, nice work, guys? Thank you, liberals. Thank you. That's what we have going on. We have a situation with President Trump's Electoral Commission, which was investigating voter fraud to see what the extent of it is this a serious problem or not. We had a situation where 15 states flat out refused to cooperate with the President of the United States. I mean, it's a nonpartisan issue, and we know probably those are the states that are guilty of voter fraud, of course, including California, the biggest state, as well as Maryland, Nevada, and quite a few others were, typically mostly blue states. Gee, I wonder why. We're on the list. Nationally, only 2 out of 3 states require any kind of photo ID to vote. Well, what kind of photo ID is it? A gym membership card? Driver's license, passport? I mean, what is it? A good photo ID? You don't even know. Fact is, if you don't know who voted, how many times they voted, or even if they voted at all, with no IDs, did anybody do we even know if people showed up to the polls? And then you have a state like California where they have ballot harvesting. Basically you just get a printing press and a tractor trailer and go to town. You find all the ballots you want. In these states where there's no ID required, essentially members, and I use the term loosely, elected from such states and sent to Congress, they need to be unseated. They should not be allowed to vote or pass legislation. They just weren't elected. Now, I'm not saying that every single voter has to be ID'd, to the nth degree, but I think it's reasonable to have a figure, say, 95% accuracy, so that 19 out of 20 voters that are at nationwide, we know who they are and that they voted correctly. And if they do show up at the wrong polling place and you do have ID and that is registered, a well-meaning but mistaken voter can be sent to the correct place to vote. And a lot of it might just be honest mistakes. The left, of course, is entrenched in these areas and using dirty tricks to steal elections. In fact, it's a specialty of socialism. The great socialist Joseph Stalin even said, he who counts the votes has more power than those who cast the vote. Okay? That's why they like illegals coming in to vote. The motive's obvious. They get on welfare. They vote Democrats. They're from socialist countries anyway. That's what they're used to. That's how they vote. That's what they do. The left is also currently basically destroying California on purpose. As California deteriorates into a Venezuela-style third world hellhole, socialist-leaning individuals from California will leave California and infest red states and thereby make them blue states by spreading out the blue wave from California and pushing it into other states, killing people with forest fires, overtaxing them to death and making them miserable. The left will drive their fellow travelers into red states where they can then flip them for more elections. This type of demographic warfare that literally even uses forest fires and environmental laws as weapons against their own Americans to get them to vote their way is just one of many atrocities that the left has inflicted on our country. And the fires are their fault. Their eco-terrorist agenda, their eco-terrorist laws prevent people from cutting trees down close to their houses such that a firewall, a void can be created so that way a fire burns around their house instead of right over it. They are guilty. Every single person who died in those wildfires was killed by the Environmental Protection Agency and the American left. Guilty. And don't think that just because we don't have Joseph Stalin type figures or Osama bin Laden type figures that the left has gone soft. Just because they have Linda Sarsour and Ocasio-Cortez as their, standard bearers doesn't mean that somehow jihad, communism have gotten all warm and cuddly. It just proves you can put lipstick on a pig. The left, socialism has killed, will kill, and always has. And isn't it interesting how the socialist left likes genital mutilation, likes to, convince children they're transsexuals and they mutilate them, and they'll, mask people's true identity by stopping sex hormones or adding others. Often before the age of 18, they advocate this. It's interesting how, of course, the jihadis, they just do it the old-fashioned way. They force women to wear veils and take rusty razor blades and hold down screaming little girls and chop off their clitoris and labia and stitch people up with leather sinews and all the rest of it. They're a little bit, less Hollywood aware, I guess. But it's kind of interesting. See, those who have a high rate of reproduction typically prevail over those who have a high rate of abortion because, showing up is kind of half the battle in life, at least. Left isn't interested in feminists. When a leftist says, I'm interested in a female, or I'm interested in someone in the working class, that's kind of like a pervert in a van getting out and walking up to a little kid saying, hey, want to see a puppy in the back of my van? The guy ain't working for the Humane Society, folks. And the left is not working for women or working people. They never have. They never will. The only thing they're working for is the Gulag. We have an individual, Clementine Ford, feminist, in the Huffington Post, was outed for publicly stating she wanted to kill all men. I have another guy, Brian Merchant, wrote another article stating that climate change deniers, people who deny the global warming hoax, should be thrown in jail. You have these red madrasas of communism, places like Berkeley and these other liberal universities, and they are madrasas of communism. Make no mistake about that. They've violated the Constitution and tried to kick whites, particularly white men, off the campus. Now, you know what? Good. Just don't go back to school. Take your money and run. Somebody kicks me out of a place because of my race, I'm never going back there, and I'm never spending another cent of my money on their sorry, stupid ass. It's absolutely unacceptable to discriminate like that, no matter what the color is. Period. The left should be ashamed of themselves, but they have no shame. The left in this country didn't just, print flyers and light a cross and summon them like the Klan did. They didn't get a printing press and print up a whole bunch of books called Mein Kampf like Hitler did and sell them. They didn't print up a bunch of even more little red books the way the Chairman Mao Zedong did and distribute them. No. The left in this country, they went one better. They built an entire obelisk called the Georgia Guidestones that clearly details that they want one ruling class of people to impose one world language and cull the world's human population to 500 million people. There are 8 billion people in the world. This dangerous terrorist ideology that is in our country currently commits more acts. I mean, the number one type of terrorism, homegrown terrorism in America, isn't Islamic terrorism or, Nazi or neo-Nazi terrorism or whatever. It's eco-terrorism. These individuals would kill 7.5 billion innocent people if they could get away with it. This is the most destructive, most dangerous mass movement ever conceived of in world history. If they succeed, genocide and mass murder for the first time will have billions of victims instead of millions of victims. The last time the United Soviet Socialist Republics, which are socialists, which believe in socialism because they believe in socialism because they believe in socialism, was in charge, they killed 100 million innocent people. When the Third Reich, National Socialists, because they believe in socialism, because they believe in socialism, because they believe in socialism, and eugenics and a few other things, got in charge, they killed about 20, 30 million people. Now they're going to go for billions. Let that sink in for a moment. Billions. And, oh yes, due to our unwise policies of animal control in this country, we have a network of gas chambers all across the United States and clinics set up to administer lethal injections. We kill 2 million cats and dogs each year in this country. I mean, if you can kill a cat, you can kill a baby. If you can kill a German Shepherd, you can kill a man. The technology exists for both, and I'll even put that at the end of the video. Because this leftist ideology is so dangerous, they need to be, prevented from gaining access to any kind of medical technology like CRISPR, gene replicators, things like that. They need to be kept away from the agricultural industry because they could possibly, harm our crops. They need to be kept away from our water supply, our electric supply, our blood supply. They need to be kept out of any federal agency that has armed personnel or contractors. They definitely, they're terrorist friends in the news that kind of function like Sinn Féin did for the IRA, or Pravda did for the communists, or De Sturmer did for the Nazis. They need to be disbanded, and these red madrasas also need to be shut down in order to save our republic from terror and death. How is this to be done? People may think terrorism doesn't work. One truck bomb is not going to solve this problem, any more than one election will solve this problem. The only solution to the problem that the left poses to our country is martial law. You heard it. Martial law. They're going to do this to us. They've said they want to arrest climate change deniers. They've said that white men are the devil. They're giving money to these Negro Nazi black supremacists who are claiming that white people aren't human because we have 2% or 4% or whatever Neanderthal DNA in our system. Fact is that the Neanderthals who are alive today, their brain size is the same as ours. They're just as intelligent as us. They would just be another race of people. But that doesn't matter to the left. These guys are serious. They've done it in Venezuela. They've done it in the Soviet Union. They did it in Nazi Germany. They did it in China. And oh, by the way, with Mao Zedong and the Cultural Revolution, there was some eco-terrorism mixed in there. They had a little bit of Malthus theory going. They felt that China was overpopulated. There's too many Chinese. And that's why Mao Zedong killed more people than Stalin and Hitler combined. Mix that little bit of eco-terrorism in there. Population control. And watch the body count go up even higher. That's what's scary about the left. They have this extra component. It's not just communism. It's this extra component that makes it really dangerous. You see, when people pose these false existential threats that have never been seen before, somebody says, your race is going to be destroyed. Satan is going to take over the world. The Antichrist is coming. You know, that type of thing. Aliens are going to get us. It causes people to want to hand over their power. These types of false existential threats, which is what global warming is, are used by the left for this purpose. The threat has to be massive. It has to be something that's never happened before. And it has to be something that only one ideology can solve. The left isn't going to talk about something that already happened, because if they do, and people realize they solved that problem without the left, then they've made themselves useless. But we know the gulags happened. We know what Stalin did, you know, in the Ukraine, starving people, the famines. We know what Hitler did. And, oh yes, the gas chambers do exist in this country. In fact, I'll roll in footage at the edge of the film. Okay? And when you see that footage, just remember, think about Antifa doing this to your wife and your daughter. Because that's what we're talking about here. Martial law is the only solution to our problems. How do you get that? Contact the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Contact the Pentagon. Go on the internet. Look up generals, 3 and 4 star generals. Read all about them. Read about their lives. Read about what their careers are like. Pick a general and write that general. Email them, whatever. Tell them to declare martial law in this country. If enough people support the idea, they'll do it. The Constitution provides for this. Defense against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And our Constitution is not a suicide pact. It isn't written just so the first theocracy or the first communist could walk in and take it. Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus during the last Civil War to save our country, and it worked. It turned brother against brother. It destroyed families. People literally fought their own, but it worked. And oh, when the military does this, you know, you're going to have to maybe let them bury a couple of dozen bodies in your backyard. You're going to have to tell them about your coworkers, friends, and family members that are engaged in seditious activity. You're going to have to, for the sake of your country, turn over those who aren't on our side, even if they're even if they're related to you by blood. It will be horrible. It will traumatize people, and the echoes of this will go down for centuries. just like the graves at Gettysburg and Arlington National Cemetery, but it is necessary. An ideology that means to kill 7.5 billion innocent people has to be stopped. I mean, let's face it. If the problem is worse than Hitler, martial law is justified. And I will roll in footage of the gas chambers at the end of this video. Remember, it's not just the cats and dogs. What they do to others, they can do to you. You're eligible too.